Hey, it is your buddy, Peace and Harmony with you here today. And I want to zoom in and focus in on perhaps one of the most key core component foundations of understanding narcissistic personality disorder, psychopathy, sociopathic, antisocial personality disorder, and what typifies this. And perhaps it'll give you a good crucial distinguishing feature as to understand the why behind this very harmful and hurtful relationship. And especially if you have been in a relationship with this individual for several months, several years, or even several decades, the impact can be quite devastating, and the life lessons learned can be quite large. And before we get started on this very key topic, I want to give a huge shout out to those of you who have recently made a donation to the Peace and Harmony channel. Thank you so much for your generosity, your compassion, your well wishes, and your viewership. It is an honor and a privilege to be able to present this content. And it's viewers like you who step up and let me know that this information is hitting home really keeps me inspired, keeps me in the flow, and keeps me on my toes to continue to bring you content on a daily basis. So thank you so much for your donations. And yes, for those of you who feel I've been a positive influence or impact in your life and you want to give to the channel, absolutely positively, you can go to the About page here on YouTube and you can make a donation. There's a little PayPal Donate Now button where you can make a contribution to the channel. So thank you so much. And we're zooming in and focusing in today on a great viewer question, and that is to understand, why of the hurt. Why is this so abnormal? Why has this occurred? I'm a good person. So there's a confusion and a sort of disappointment that surrounds the relationship, and perhaps exposing this individual and seeing how needy they were, and then feeling sort of a tinge of disappointment, or feeling like they're somehow marred in a like a stigmatic way. They feel that they are somehow now unclean or impure, or will never be, they will be a damaged good, or they won't be lovable in a relationship again. I will never have a relationship again, Peace and Harmony. I can't trust other people. I don't trust the world at large. So there becomes this huge spilling over into the quality of life. Their litmus test of life is on the down low. And so if we look at really understanding this and the key component to moving forward in getting through that feeling of being tarred, of being blemished by this relationship, it is perhaps one thing or one key understanding and concept that can make it easier for you to move on in love and light is to understand the key concept of self-love. And you might hear this, I hear this thrown around a lot, Peace, Harmony. I love myself. I give myself 3 meals a day. I have a place to live. I go and follow up at the doctor. I have a job. Isn't this self-love? Well, I can tell you unequivocally, beyond the shadow of a doubt, no. There can be all sorts of people who, work extremely hard. They work extremely hard in their relationships, but yet there is a feeling of inadequacy and lack of self-acceptance underneath it all. Especially in today's culture tends to reinforce the feeling of inadequacy, especially that is promulgated by a narcissistic or a psychopathic relationship. I feel inadequate, never good enough. I'm not in shape enough. I'm not pretty enough. I'm not manly enough. I don't make enough money. I'm not healthy enough. I can't do this. I can't do that. I am inadequate. And sometimes this, which is lurking in the quiet giant, in the subconscious, is oftentimes what promulgates these defense mechanisms, the overworking out, the overspending, the, getting in over your head financially. We have too much house and, or we have too many bills at the end of the month. We have too much car, because you have felt that to prove your adequacy, you have to have a specific thing, a specific brand label, a specific footage to your house, specific vacations, and oftentimes to keep up with the Joneses or to keep up with the narcissistic supply demands or the psychopath to help belay your feeling of paranoia or losing them, people tend to promulgate into this, this over-obligation or really cover up a lack of self-love. And to understand this is a really key, crucial component. And if we look at really what it means to be able to have unconditional positive regard for yourself without an absence of fear. And really to the point where if you could give yourself like a hug and to know your self-worth and the importance and value of the meaning that you have to life and the importance of who you are. It is to have positive self-regard in all respects. And so if you have negative pockets in your life, then, large looming pockets in your life where it is plagued by self-sabotage, self-loathing, the reckless, cutting behaviors, the self-sabotage, the staying in relationships too long, tolerating abuse, tolerating emotional neglect, the manipulation of constantly being in a reactive state. It's because there is perhaps a core of lack of self-love. And to love yourself really means to embrace yourself, despite what you've been through, despite what other, sticks and stones may break my bones, despite the bullying, despite the pathological lies, the betrayal, and the feeling of being destroyed or being defunct or feeling victimized or feeling tainted or blemished or darkened in some way because of this, to feel less than, to feel unholy, to feel shameful, and to have, really toxic shame, which means it gives you a feeling of inhibition and lack of ability to go out in life and pursue things like your interests, to have that sort of juice, that DNA, that positive emotional self-regard is a good indicator that you are suffering from a lack of self-love. Well, peace and harmony, that sounds super, selfish. Well, if you're meeting this concept with resistance, it's perhaps because this is the very key component that you are missing and not experiencing in your life. Self-love, I feel, is an experiential state. It is a be state, which means you can be and feel and exist in the self-love state. It's also an action state, which means it carries forth into your behaviors. It is typified by boundaries and standards, but it's also typified by really embracing and being able to hold yourself like the love that you are. It is recognizing that you are love, you are the infinite intelligence, you are the golden light, you are the golden child in the eyes of the divine. And to really know this, oh, that sounds so, religious or spiritual. It's actually a very important key realization that you look at and understand in your life, and to know what that feels like. And is to realize that perhaps this hole, this chasm, this divide within has been carved even more profound, even deeper, and more of like a dark abyss, like a black hole within you. And, you feel that this will never end is because you have brushed shoulders, you have brushed bellies, you've come toe to toe with someone who is living by a toxic lack of self-love. The narcissist who seem to be full of self-love, the charming, the rich, the wealthy, the CEO, the people who you would think would be last on your list that would be lack of self-love are the narcissists and the psychopaths. The narcissists do not experience self-love. In fact, it's the deficit of this, which is oftentimes part of their insatiable need to control and have power over others. So when we talk about an insatiable, meaning it will not ever be quenched, it will not stop, it is their driving force mechanism, and they oftentimes, because of lack of empathy and this feeling of entitlement, they think that, oh, life is just humming along, and they don't oftentimes see the problem of it. You know, they will suffer oftentimes for needing new supply, but it is because they're gathering all their love from and supply. You know, what do you mean love? Well, let's just call it supply, support, acknowledgement, validation from the things, people, outside of them, and because they don't really have it within. A unconditional positive self-regard, self-compassion, mercy, the acknowledgement that you are love. And if you have a problem with acknowledging this, just go look outside your window and look at a blade of grass, and look at the soil, and look at the sky, or look at the clouds, and say, did man make this? Okay, now it is up for you to answer this, or look at a plant or a rock that's in your close environment. Did man make this? Or was this created by the hands of the divine creator? Look at the fields of wildflowers. Look at the, rambling hills. Look at the trees. Look at the forests. Did man plant all these? Okay, and then you must answer this for yourself. And then you must find yourself in that element. And then see that you, likewise, are a mirrored reflection and creation of that divine spirit, that divine intelligence. That is what you are. You are actually made of stardust. There's, they look at the carbon atoms, and they look at, and this is like quantum physics, but you can see that a lot of the carbon base, and I'm not too scientific on this, but, we share those elements with which are the fuel that have been the fuel within stars. So it's pretty magnificent. It's pretty miraculous. And when you really think about that, and to give it up and surrender to that, which has put you here, is like gotta be a huge burden off of your shoulders. And to realize that you are divine love, and to realize that you are part of that awakening. For example, when we talk about the awakening, and I know we have a lot of viewers here who are like struggling with the awakening and it seems so painful. Well, I will ask you this. Have you ever, woken up with the sunrise? Is it because it's bright out that you're stretching your arms and you're waking, you're getting your coffee, you're getting your hash browns, you're making your cereal, you're making your oatmeal, your multi-meal, whatever it is? Or do you sleep all day? Is not the sun calling you forth? Is it not beckoning something to you? Okay, so this is to also the awakening. It's a natural experience. You don't have to feel inadequate or less than because you're quote unquote in an awakening state. It is actually very natural for you, and it actually puts you on you're more sensitive and conscientious and aware of what is good, truth, humane, and, heartwarming in life. So it makes you sharper to that, more aware, more conscious, and more sensitive to it. So, and I would say the more and more of your awakening, the more sensitive and awake and alive you become. So you're actually becoming more alive. You become more spiritually in tune, more psychologically in tune. Those of you who have been on the journey, look how far you have come. Look at the start and look at where you are. Have you not made some great strides in your life? If you have, give yourself like a big pat on the shoulder. But furthermore, I want you to understand the value of self-love and really begin to embrace yourself. Remember, like in 6th and 7th grade, when you would be, you would do that, like, oh, I'm, doing making out in the corner. And then you'd see the kids like who would be doing that to themselves, and you'd be laughing and joking. I want you to have that sort of experience with yourself. Perhaps when you take your nap today, or you go to sleep, or when you wake up tomorrow morning, give yourself a chance just to really hold yourself with love, compassion, and mercy. And you will begin to see that you can give yourself that very heartfelt need and affection yourself. Men and women, I don't care, men, I don't need this, I'm big, tough, put some dirt on it. Yes, you do. Like, admit it. This will do you some good. And getting back to that self-love, it's just, and it's understanding that the narcissist does not have this. So they don't have self-love. They must constantly feel like they have to dim the light of others. They must cut out the competition in order to feel, quote unquote, superior. They don't feel self-esteem. They need to feel this from others. So just think how dependent that is for that individual. And if you can let them go and love and light and forgive them for being, harsh to you, but that is their composite. That's their personality disorder. And as I say, if you need help letting somebody go, think about yelling at someone who was sight impaired, for using a vision cane. Or, think of the hearing impaired who did not have the hearing aid. These are assistive devices that these people need. So if you kind of can have some compassion and find it in your heart to not get upset with the narcissist because they have utilized others, almost objectified as like assistive devices, you have to realize that this is the impairment or the handicap that these individuals have. And so even though it has been life draining for you, at least maybe you can cut them a break, cut them some slack, and realize that it is not your fault. You are not less than, you are not inadequate, and you are not, smudged internally or made impure or damaged. It is just that you have encountered a very difficult relationship, and these people are difficult. And so in getting a little bit more in depth, and we're going to go a little long today, it is to understand. Now let's look at the psychopath, because I really kind of feel that we need to address these. The scope of my channel is looking at that, and the malignant narcissist and the psychopath, the antisocial personality disorder, the individual without a conscience. They don't have it, up there, the neurological wiring. There ain't no cables that go there. There ain't no hotspot. There ain't no charger. There ain't no device that's in there that's giving them a right or wrong. They do not live by values. They don't live by that intangible, the emotional constructs of love. It's so difficult to define, but when you feel it, you think you feel it. Okay, these individuals, by virtue of their neural network, the wiring and firing, and the inactivity in certain areas of their brain and the disconnect therein, they do, and the neurochemicals that they're sensitive to or insensitive to creates an individual with a lack of morality. So they are not troubled by doing the horrible. They are not motivated by values, okay? They are not motivated by a mission statement. It is to win. It is to win. To them, that is what life is all about. And like a psychopath will tell you, part of the flawed thinking of others is for them to think that all others think just like they do. It is to have the flawed thinking, the erroneous understanding, or the lack of knowledge, to think that just because they have 2 legs, 2 arms, a nice haircut, a great job, that they have a family, a house, that means that they are of a person of heart. And to the depravity and the grave lack of heart that they have, that would give them the ability to hurt and, pathologically try to destroy and ruin others. So they have oftentimes no problem. In fact, they love the fight. In fact, they will go to the ruin of others, even if it means them lying. Lying in court, lying in meetings, etc., etc., etc. So these individuals do not experience love. in that sense whatsoever. It's just not there. So when you have felt that you have been betrayed, violated, made impure, made unholy, made damaged, made less than, feel that you have lost, years of your life, or you have felt that you had suffered, and that you were crazy, and that you were asking too much, or you were too insensitive, or you were too paranoid, or there must be something paranoid about you. You must be going off the deep end. You must, there's something like flailingly wrong about you. If you've had those questions about yourself while in relationships with these individuals, I can unequivocally tell you that you are okay. It is not your fault. You were triggered and you were in proximity. I love that word, proximity, i.e. meaning close to, in the vicinity of someone without conscience or with a malignant personality disorder who uses and tries to take the gifts of others for only their own benefit and will exploit the weakness of others, i.e. weakness, i.e. humanness, i.e. the, making fun of it and exploiting your need for love, attention, validation, communication, affection, warmth. Okay, so they're going to exploit these weaknesses. So for them, it doesn't mean that you're weak. To want a healthy relationship is a weakness to them. See, they tend to find others who need that bond, i.e. a normal trust, to be a weakness. You need to have trust, you need to have communication, you need to have hand holding, you need to have the real thing. Why would you be, that's just a waste of time. That's a burden. That's, what keeps people down. That's their mindset. So do not feel ashamed for being ridiculed for wanting the real thing. I think that's one of the most hurtful things that takes away from that core of self-love, is because they haven't been able to obtain it from another, and they didn't have that self-love perhaps going in that told them, hey, stop here. Here's my boundary. Here's my standard. They didn't have, as they say, a great colleague, Vincent Genna, who talks in his, he has a great, he's a wonderful person. He has a great program called Stop Stopping Yourself. And he uses the analogy of self-love to preheating the oven. And it takes a while, folks, kids, viewers, beautiful empowered harmonizers, to really get this concept of what it means to preheat the oven or to have the warmth there. So for him, Vincent Genna, he believes that it's like you need to preheat the oven before you bake a cake. So you can have, he calls it, the Rachel Ray cookware, and you can have all the right gourmet ingredients, and you can have the best spatula, and you can whip it up with the finest, mixer. But in other words, you can be, the most magnificent of people, but if you put it into an unpreheated oven, your dish is not going to make it. It's going to flop. In other words, he looks at, and I think this is a great understanding, that he looks at self-love like preheating the oven. In other words, you've already got that warmth there. You've got that feeling of positive self-regard there. You know your self-worth there before you're thrown to the wolves. So in other words, when you've got that, it's like you'll get out quickly and you won't look back. I don't want to go back in there. People without positive self-regard, without positive self-love, they keep going back to the lion's den. They keep throwing themselves back to the wolves. They still be attracted and seduced by the sizzle of the covert narcissist, the psychopath. They have difficulty saying no. They don't know how to, to realize that it's okay to say no, that no, I need to rest. I need the real thing. I need to work on this. This is what I want. And then standing up for your values and knowing that you have the rights. So it's getting really in touch with human rights, your human right as an individual to, to pursue life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. It's in our preamble of the United States Constitution. And I know we have a lot of international viewers here, but, and it's to understand that to see how this interplay of life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness can perhaps also ring true for you. And to understand the key component of self-love, that, and it's then to realize that when you're under the harsh scrutiny or judgment of others, it no longer bothers you. It's because you're a good person. It's because you have a gift to give. It's to know that you have a talent, that you have the right to your life and conform to your own standards versus conforming to a harsh judgment of another who's trying to keep you down in negative orderly direction thinking, negative orderly direction behavior, or negative orderly direction feeling. So if you look at, and this is just a concept that I have created, NOD thinking, which leads you to the negative, the feeling damaged, hopeless, etc., and then the positive orderly direction thinking, feeling, and behaving. Noticed I threw in there feeling. Begin to become more attuned to and more aware of your feelings. See if you can have less, emotional relapses where you're feeling low. See if you can feeling bad, feeling damaged, feeling impure, unholy, all the, various sundry things that this relationship has caused you to feel unloved, isolated, immobilized, numbed out, dissociative, dehumanized, all those negative feelings where you feel like you're a less than person, like there's bits and hunks and bites taken out of you, like the Apple logo. The apple with the bite, you kind of feel like there's been a bite taken out of you. And like the Britney Spears song, You Want a Piece of Me, you feel like they took a piece of you and they just like ran off. And you're feeling like, I will never regain that. Part of me has been lost, or I even feel lost. So if you're feeling this way, it is to understand that perhaps it is because of this feeling of the need for unconditional self-love, and to realize you haven't lost yourself or a piece of you to this person. You are not lost. Your feet are right beneath you. It's getting a chart to your direction, and then feeling releasing the guilt from feeling positive, and going and doing something self-love-ish, which oftentimes people equate as selfish. And am I a narcissist? Is this going to make me a narcissist if I take care of myself? So there's this grappling and battling within man against himself, that perhaps I'm being selfish and this is wrong. Well, look at it from a bird's eye perspective and from the eyes of the Savior, of God, that, you are the eyes, of the Savior. The Savior sees through you. And be as children. I think it says in the Bible, whether you're, Christian, Catholic, Lutheran, it doesn't matter. But perhaps what's important is that you get a takeaway. What's important is that you get something that you can feel and apply to your life immediately, or that you can think on, marinate on, but not perseverate on. Because if you flounder, you need to kind of help to get yourself into a little bit more of a B state or a mindful state, and begin to incorporate this as a ritual, self-love ritual. And this is bringing structure to your practice. So it's saying, okay, I'm going to plug these into my calendar. I always recommend, having a couple key tools and having an appointment book. Scheduling in time for you to engage in new practices, breaking your routine, going from the old routine to the better you routine. Plugging in a moment, time for you to feel positive self-regard. Hey, peace and harmony, I can only do it for 2 minutes. Okay, great. 2 minutes is better than no minutes. Hey, peace and harmony, I can only be mindful for like 5 minutes. Okay, great. Well then, take time, put it in your calendar, mindfulness. You are taking a pen in hand and an appointment book in hand, and I don't have it here right with me, but you've all seen me refer to the appointment book, the calendar, for a year-by-year basis. And then plug in self-love. Write that in as your moment. Write that in as your recovery date. Write that in as a moment, meaning where you actually encourage a specific feeling and acknowledge and validate a specific emotion within yourself. And that is a term that I have created. So for specifically, if you are needing self-love, then you might put in, you know, on Sunday from 3 to 3:15, I'm going to just close my eyes and feel self-love, and just focus in on self-love and what that means to you. You might start crying. You might start weeping. You might start bawling. You might start smiling. You might have tears of joy. You might hug yourself. You might give yourself a high five. You might go, yeah. You might scream. That is realization. So you're making new neural connections. Studies have shown that when you engage in exercise and intellectual activities, you're creating new synapses in the brain. The neurons, which are your brain cells, and then the axons and the dendrites, which are like the roots coming off of it, are electrified. They are, whoa, like there are new cells created. There are new neural pathways. So if you look at pathways almost like a tree, a dendrite, and you can, you know, research this on Google, or if you like, or you can see images of it, but you know, it branches out like a tree. So you're creating new trees of life within your mind, new connections. You are learning new things. Literally, the brain lights up. So when people say, you know, if they look at scans, you know, you can see activity in brain scans. So when you say, I see the light, like literally you're lighting up connections within your neural pathways. So you're creating new paths. Your mind is going new places underneath the surface, underneath the hood. So the emotements, once again, you know, this might be a very good opportunity for you to acknowledge self-love and realize that oftentimes we're going super long here, and that's going to be okay. We're going to wrap it up in a few minutes. It is because you have been deprived of this and felt bad about this experience oftentimes while you're in a relationship with a narcissist or a psychopath. They will deprive you of self-love. They will rob you of your ability to experience self-love. They will thwart and hinder your attempts to engage in and fulfill self-actualization, Maslow's hierarchy of needs, as well as experience self-love. They will thwart your attempts, i.e. strides or progress that you're making. They will shut it down. That's, you know, when you're at your finest moments, that's where they're going to try to hit you for the kneecaps. When you are at your best or seeing the light, that's when they're going to throw, you know, on the lampshade. They're going to try to darken your perspective. And so you can see this pattern affecting and influencing you even when you're not around them. In other words, it's the lack of self-love, self-limiting beliefs, which are keeping you from not turning the light on, from not doing your recovery pages, from not doing your recovery date, from not, you know, going for it. Because it's a ripple effect. It's a pattern which has been indelibly set within you subconsciously. Nothing will make a difference. I'm never getting any better. I can never